They say that objects cared for with love eventually cradle souls within them. But what fate befalls the things we discard? What kind of spirits take root in the refuse we so easily cast aside? That unsettling thought marks the beginning of this story. It starts with a little girl, her face clouded with sorrow as she gazes down at her torn stuffed animal, a once beloved companion, now frayed and broken. Her mother, seeing nothing but a ragged, unsightly thing, decides it isn't worth saving. Why mend what can be replaced? She tosses it into a bag of trash and makes her way to the garbage depot near their home, dropping the bundle into the underground waste shaft without a second glance. But from the shadows, a hooded figure silently observes. In this world, it takes very little for something or someone to be labeled as garbage. The same cold indifference shown to broken objects is far too often reserved for people as well. As the mother walks away, the silent figure turns and descends into the underground, following the path of the discarded. In the shadows of this polished city, there's a name whispered with contempt: the dump thief. A hooded figure branded a menace, accused of stealing trash and sullying the spotless streets. To the city's officials, he's a criminal threat to their carefully curated image. One night, a lone guard catches sight of the shadowy intruder and slams the alarm. Within moments, reinforcements flood in, weapons drawn. But the thief is fast. He throws bags of refuse at the guards, creating precious seconds to flee. Bullets tear through the air as the chase spills through the underground, but the mysterious figure moves like something untouchable, weaving, leaping, and twisting through gunfire as if fate itself refused to claim him. A bullet grazes his side, but still he vanishes into the rancid sewers. Up on the surface, the fugitive curses under his breath. A thief? That word burns more than the wound. He never saw himself that way. By morning, gossip spreads like wildfire. In the bustling town square, two women chatter about the dump thief's latest stunt. One mutters darkly that only a tribal could be behind such disgrace. The other quickly hushes her when she notices a tribal man within earshot. As soon as he walks off, they sneer their disdain, wishing people like him would stay far from their pristine district. The man, Reto, walks wordlessly through the spotless streets until the scenery shifts. The slums, a land of decay and desperation, fenced off by a towering, oppressive wall. In this forgotten corner of the world, houses rot, the air stinks, and the desperate shuffle through the streets like shadows. Even here, rumors of the dump thief stir unease. Whispers grow that the apostles, the city's ruthless enforcers, will descend upon them before long. In a cluttered shack, a young scavenger named Rudo pieces together broken relics salvaged from the garbage heaps. His friend, Chiwa, storms in, furious. She scolds him yet again for meddling where he shouldn't. Everyone knows how merciless the city's garbage laws are, and what happens to those who cross them. She doesn't understand why he keeps risking his life for discarded junk. But Rudo does. The rich throw away perfectly good things without a second thought, and something about that gnaws at him. He can't turn away. Besides, it's how he survives. Chiwa teases that maybe he just loves trash. Before Rudo can argue, a gang of hostile kids appears, led by a sneering boy eager to mock him. They insult his smell, his ragged gloves, his filthy scavenger's lamp. One kicks over his work, while another warns Chiwa she'll stink just by standing near him. But the insults turn darker. They sneer about his bloodline, calling him the son of a murderer. They remind everyone how this slum fought to escape its shameful past, until Rudo's father slaughtered innocents and dragged them all back into disgrace. At that, Rudo's eyes burn with fury. His glare alone sends a chill through the ringleader, who stammers and labels him a criminal in the making. The bullies retreat, rattled but smug, warning that one day Rudo will be just like his old man. When they're gone, Chiwa comforts him. She swears she knows who he truly is, a good heart, not a killer. Her attention drifts to a stuffed animal Rudo salvaged from the dump. She lights up with delight. Rudo wants to give it to her, but his voice catches in his throat. Before he can summon the courage, Chiwa's mother calls her away, another warning to stay clear of him. Rudo hates himself for hesitating, for always being too late. Later, Rudo crosses paths with Reto, the tribal man humiliated earlier in the city square. Reto grins knowingly, teasing about Rudo's failed gift-giving attempt. Embarrassed and defensive, Rudo protests, until Reto's face turns serious. He demands to know what happened during last night's dangerous run. Reto warns him, one mistake and it's over. The city won't forgive. They don't care how young he is. Rudo insists he's careful, that he's never been caught. But the older man knows better. It doesn't matter. Danger finds everyone eventually. Blood relation or not, Reto sees Rudo as family. He saved the boy from abandonment when no one else would. Rudo knows this, feels the weight of that bond. And yet, the fire in his heart, that reckless need to defy a world that throws away everything and everyone it deems worthless, keeps pulling him back to the trash heaps, where the city discards its secrets and where something monstrous waits beneath the filth. Rudo owed Reto a debt no words could repay. The old man had given him shelter, a family, and a reason to keep breathing when no one else would. And tonight, as Reto playfully teased him about Chiwa, claiming the girl was bound to fall for him if he could just be honest for once, Rudo nearly fumbled the lantern in his hands, face flushed. But Reto's grin quickly faded the moment he noticed the blood seeping from a fresh bullet graze on the boy's arm. Without a word, Reto sat him down, peeling away the worn gloves Rudo never removed. The gloves that once masked the blackened, scarred hands cursed with pain since childhood, wounds so monstrous they earned him looks of disgust long before anyone knew his name. It was Reto who had given him those gloves years ago, when the boy's mind teetered on the edge. Somehow, with them, the pain lessened, or at least became bearable. As Reto cleaned and bandaged the wound, he pleaded with Rudo one last time. Stop going to the dump. Stop risking everything for a world that doesn't care if you live or die. But Rudo, stubborn as ever, shrugged it off. Compared to the scars his father left on his hands and on his life, this was nothing. The conversation turned somber as Reto reminded him of the city's brutal justice. Commit a serious crime, and you're cast into the abyss. That's where Rudo's father had been thrown, and it was where anyone deemed filth was destined to rot. Reto's voice softened as he urged the boy not to meet the same fate. Trying to lift the mood, Reto teased him again. If Rudo didn't move fast, someone else would steal Chiwa's heart. Maybe it was time to give her the stuffed bunny he'd salvaged, maybe even steal a kiss while he was at it. Rudo's angry protests echoed through the shack, though his face betrayed his flustered nerves. Neither of them noticed the shadow lingering just beyond their door. Reto tried one last trick. He told Rudo to fake a smile, to pretend, to act. If people wouldn't accept the boy he was, then let them believe in the person he pretended to be. But Rudo doubted anyone would see past his crimson eyes, eyes that stirred fear, not sympathy. As Rudo wandered the slums, the abyss itself loomed in his thoughts, a bottomless pit where both garbage and condemned souls were discarded. His path crossed a mob of jeering onlookers, gathered as another unfortunate soul was sentenced. Into the abyss with the filth, they chanted, the same words once spat at his father. Chiwa startled him from his thoughts. She reminded him that life in the ghetto came with this constant threat. Sooner or later, you'd see someone thrown away like trash. And she didn't want Rudo to be next. She told him that Reto cared about him, and so did she. That single two hung between them, and Rudo, flustered, dared to hope it meant more. The awkward tension broke when Chiwa spotted the stuffed bunny in his hands. Trapped, Rudo handed it to her, saying it would be happier with her than rotting in the dump. She lit up, clutching it close. Overwhelmed, Rudo bolted, eager to tell Reto what had just happened. When Rudo burst through the door, he expected a lecture, not blood, not the sight of Reto's body collapsing under a hooded killer's blade. Panicked, Rudo charged, but the stranger struck him down easily. As the boy lay battered, Reto, with his final breath, told his adopted son to run, to live, and change this rotten world. But there was no escape. A squad of apostles stormed the house, their weapons drawn. Rudo's protests fell on deaf ears. The blame was pinned on him. Murderer. Filth. Like father, like son. The crowd gathered outside, eyes gleaming with vindication as the apostles beat him down. His neighbors murmured, confirming what they'd long suspected. Even Chiwa, her gaze clouded with betrayal, Dragged to the city's edge, accused of murder, branded the infamous trash thief, Rudo stood before the abyss. The judge's voice rang out, robes gleaming in false sanctity, declaring the sentence: all filth must be swallowed by the abyss. The crowd screamed. Rudo's heart cracked. He searched for a single kind face, but all he saw were eyes filled with hate. Even Chiwa averted her gaze, discarding the stuffed bunny he gave her like it was poison. In a final cruel blow, she muttered, "Like father, like son," and walked away. But then, in the crowd, Rudo saw him, the killer. Rage surged through him, but before he could act, strong hands shoved him into the abyss. As he fell, his mind splintered, hatred rising like a storm. He swore revenge on them all, this blind, heartless city, its soulless mob, and its false justice. He would drag every last one of them into the depths of hell. Darkness swallowed him, and when he finally opened his eyes, Rudo lay atop a mountain of rotting trash in a world made entirely of refuse, a vast, endless wasteland of decay. The stench choked him, and then something vast moved. A monstrous, grotesque figure born of filth loomed over him, and in that moment, Rudo realized this was hell. Looking back on his world, Rudo always thought it was bizarre how everyone acted like clean freaks, obsessed with catching criminals, yet didn't give a damn about what happened to anything, or anyone, dumped into the abyss. Ironically, Rudo didn't have time to ponder those hypocrisies right now. At this very moment, he was sprinting for his life, trying to outpace a massive, grotesque creature made entirely of trash. And because life clearly hated him, it summoned a pack of equally hideous beasts to join the fun. Before he knew it, Rudo was boxed in. One lunged at him with its disgusting jaws, and he barely ducked out of the way in time. What followed was a non-stop, frantic series of attacks, forcing him to burn every ounce of energy just to stay alive, and leaving him seriously questioning what kind of psychopath would sentence a person to a hellhole like this. Then, as if the universe wasn't done toying with him, the unstable trash beneath his feet gave way. He plummeted through the filth, hitting the ground hard, now even more exposed than before. The stench in the air was so toxic, it felt like his lungs were about to turn to charcoal. Eyes darting desperately, he scanned for a way out. There was one path that looked half passable, but every other direction led straight into more piles of rotting junk. Realizing how hopeless his situation was, he coughed up blood right then and there. The splatter and noise drew the attention of the monsters, their hungry eyes locking onto him like predators spotting fresh meat. At that moment, Rudo could only think one thing: this is it. Just as he was about to be overwhelmed, a vision of his adoptive father, Regto, appeared before his eyes. In his mind, he saw the moment of Recto's death playing out once more, until suddenly, Recto's voice rang out, shouting, "No!" The word ignited something deep within Rudo. Around him, scattered metal bars in the dump began to glimmer faintly, as though calling to him. In that moment, Rudo made a decision. He wasn't ready to die here. Gripping one of the metal rods, he swore vengeance on those who had condemned him to this place, and above all, vowed to hunt down the one responsible for Regto's death. But before he could fulfill that promise, he had to make it out alive. Driven by fury, Rudo charged at the monstrous trash beasts with a strength and ferocity he hadn't known he possessed. He struck with a force far beyond what seemed possible for someone like him, meeting the creatures head-on. Using anything he could find, broken street signs, pieces of rusted metal, and discarded debris, he fought back, managing to defeat some of the towering beasts. A stranger watched him from afar. After this exhausting battle, Rudo collapsed to his knees, still clutching one of his makeshift weapons, struggling to breathe through the choking stench of the wasteland. Just when he thought he might have a chance to catch his breath, the largest creature appeared, closing in to strike. This time, Rudo didn't hesitate. He sprinted away, trying to put as much distance between it as possible. Yet the beast slammed its foot down, sending heaps of garbage into the air and separating Rudo from any possible escape, dragging him along with the debris. Weakened and nearly defeated, Rudo believed this would be the end. But then, unexpectedly, the stranger intervened. A man wearing a gas mask and carrying an umbrella appeared and, with surprising strength, hurled Rudo across the dump. Without saying a word, The man placed a gas mask over Rudo's face, an unexpected act that only deepened the mystery of his identity. Rudo, desperate for answers, bombarded the man with questions. Where was this place? Who was he? What were those monsters? But the man simply told him to stay quiet. Disoriented and panicked, Rudo struggled to focus on what the man was saying. Between the suffocating mask and the chaotic surroundings, it was impossible to clearly hear his words. Frustrated, Rudo raised his voice, demanding answers, until the stranger finally lost his patience and shouted back. He explained that this wasn't the underworld, it was the surface. Everything around them was the result of waste dumped by the Celestials above, who cared nothing for the damage it caused. And now, because of Rudo's noise, the creatures knew exactly where they were. These monsters were called blighted beasts, made from garbage and capable of regenerating from anything around them. Ordinary weapons couldn't destroy them. At that moment, one of the beasts drew closer, ready to strike. Calmly, the masked man wrapped flames around his umbrella, transforming it into a deadly weapon. Now composed, he prepared for battle. As the creature hurled debris toward them, the man skillfully deflected every attack with his umbrella, and the damage it dealt prevented the beast from recovering. All around them, more blighted beasts began to emerge from the shadows, but the man showed no hesitation. He met the creatures head-on, cutting them down effortlessly, as though his umbrella were no ordinary tool, but a legendary weapon in its own right. Rudo could only watch in shock, uncertain whether it was the weapon that held such power or the man himself. Either way, with strength like that, Rudo realized someone like him could finally get revenge on those responsible for throwing him into this forsaken place. With just one creature left, the last beast gathered a thick blob of toxic sludge in its jaws and spat it toward the umbrella-wielding man. Calmly, the stranger shielded himself and responded with a devastating move, Unbreaker Octashredder. The strike was merciless, cleaving the monster's head from its shoulders and triggering a second, powerful explosion that completely wiped the creature out. The fight was finally over. When Rudo stirred and asked for his name, the stranger removed his helmet and mask, revealing his face. He introduced himself as Engine. But the moment his mask came off, the overwhelming stench of the dump hit him, and he cursed Rudo for putting him through something so reckless. Before Rudo could respond, exhaustion took over, and he passed out again. The scene shifted to a memory from Rudo's childhood. He returned home one day, dirty and bruised after being beaten by classmates for claiming that objects were alive. His guardian, Regto, asked if he had fought back, and when the boy admitted he hadn't, Regto smiled. It was the answer he had hoped for. Rudo then recalled something Regto once told him, that if you cared for an object long enough, it might eventually develop a soul. When the boy took those words literally, believing things around him could truly be alive, Regto gently explained that it was just an old story meant to encourage people to value and look after their belongings. Even so, Regto admitted, deep down, that he believed in it too. As he cleaned the dirt from the boy's face with a towel, he joked that maybe the towel worked so well because it had a soul of its own. Curious, young Rudo pointed to other objects in the room, asking if they also had souls. Laughing, Regto told him it was possible, and that if he treated them kindly, perhaps one day they would. Rudo woke from the memory, finding himself chained. Seeing the masked man nearby, he angrily called him a piece of garbage. Engine, unfazed, simply asked if that was how someone should talk to the person who had just saved their life. As Rudo was dragged along by his restraints, he demanded to know what Engine intended to do with him. Enraged, Rudo shouted that he needed to return to the surface, but Engine merely shrugged, telling him that wasn't going to happen. What Rudo called upstairs was no longer within reach. The people who lived down here referred to the surface as the sphere. Reaching it, however, wasn't simple. Not only was the path to it constantly changing, but there were other reasons as well. Reasons Engine wasn't ready to explain just yet. For now, he kept dragging Rudo along, telling him to take the opportunity to rest while he could. But Rudo's patience was wearing thin. He refused to back down, insisting that no matter what Engine said, he would find a way back. What unsettled him more was that Engin's choice of words, calling it impossible for now, hinted that he knew a way to reach the sphere, but was choosing to keep it to himself. Frustrated, Rudo demanded to be taught out everything about this strange world and about the strange power Engin had used earlier. He made it clear that his only goal was to use that strength to take revenge on the one responsible for his father's death. At those words, Engin finally removed his helmet and sighed in irritation. He admitted he was tired of hearing the boy complain, but since Rudo seemed so determined, he agreed to show him the kind of place he was truly in. Without much explanation, Engin dragged Rudo to an abandoned, half-collapsed gas station, left him there, and coldly told him, "Have fun." Confused and with no idea what was happening, Rudo looked around. Before he could process anything, a group of masked men emerged from nearby trucks parked by the station. One of them, spotting a child in a place like this, was immediately suspicious. He took one look at Rudo's clothes and guessed he might be a Celestial. Curious, he asked where the boy came from. When Rudo told them he fell from the sphere, the men reacted with disbelief, quickly removing their masks as though witnessing something extraordinary. It was unthinkable for someone from the sphere to appear here, and hearing Rudo speak their language only made them more certain he was the real thing. While a few of them doubted it at first, suspecting a trick, the man in front insisted the boy was telling the truth. He started to unchain Rudo, making it seem like these people were far kinder than the cold and secretive Engin. But Rudo was chained tighter than before, ensuring he couldn't escape. To them, a Celestial's body was worth a fortune, and capturing one alive would bring them unimaginable wealth. But it wasn't just whole Celestials that brought a high price. There were buyers for individual parts as well. Eyes, limbs, even their clothing. The gang's leader explained that the reason people hunted Celestials was simple. Everyone hated them. The people of the sphere sent all their waste down here, poisoning the land, creating monstrous creatures, and making life nearly unlivable through violence, pollution, and chaos. That was why the bandits were eager to see what their client would do once Rudo was in his hands. To ensure Rudo stayed alive long enough to be sold, the gang leader shoved a handful of rotten trash into his mouth, mocking him for being a spoiled Celestial unaccustomed to food from the dumps. But when he forced the garbage down, Rudo retaliated, biting down on the man's hand and tearing off part of 2 fingers. Not stopping there, Rudo chewed and swallowed the raw flesh before turning to the rotten food and taking a bite, calmly stating that it was still edible. The grotesque display stunned the men. Rudo then declared that, in the end, all people were the same. Whether they lived in the sphere or the abyss, humans were capable of the same cruelties, always dividing themselves into groups to justify it. As fury and a strange power gathered around him, Rudo shattered the chains around his wrists, refusing to remain a prisoner to the will of others. From a distance, Engin watched with a grin as Rudo carved an X of glowing energy into the floor, a clear sign that the boy possessed the ability he suspected. In that instant, Rudo recalled Recto's words, that if someone cared for an object long enough, it could develop a soul. Engin quietly noted that those who could bring life to objects were known as givers, and Rudo was one of them. But the gang leader wasn't about to let such a valuable prize slip away. He ordered his men to kill Rudo if they had to. The bandits charged at the boy with blades drawn, but Rudo fought back, swinging his chain with devastating force, crushing anyone too slow to react. Seeing the danger, one of them shouted for the others to target his chains, claiming that a giver could only empower what they personally owned. Eventually, one bandit managed to strike the shackle attached to Rudo's chain, breaking it and momentarily disarming him. But Rudo acted quickly, grabbing a discarded tire and breathing life into it. The newly awakened object joined the battle, battering the bandits and bringing a grim satisfaction to Engin, who continued watching from the sidelines. After defeating the gang members, Rudo confronted the leader, who cursed him furiously and demanded to know what kind of person he was. As Rudo prepared to deliver the final blow, Engin intervened, telling him to stand down. In that instant, the red glow faded from Rudo's eyes, and the objects he'd given life to fell lifelessly to the ground. A stray brick even landed on the gang leader's head, knocking him unconscious. Stunned, Rudo struggled to understand what had just happened. It was only when he recalled Regto's words that something within him seemed to settle, the connection between his abilities and the objects he'd once cherished becoming clear. Seeing blood running from Rudo's nose, Engine remarked that carrying such power couldn't be easy. He then revealed that this was the reason for the entire setup, to confirm whether Rudo truly possessed the abilities of a giver. Now that the truth was evident, Engine offered to explain everything. In exchange, he wanted Rudo to become a cleaner. When Rudo heard the offer, he thought it over for a moment, blood still trailing from his nose, and then quietly answered, "No, I'd rather not." If you don't want to miss what happens next, make sure to subscribe and check out more videos here.